Launch has come and gone for Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and with England ripe for the picking, it's time for us to roll up our sleeves and dive into the nitty-gritty of the game. Hey there friends, it's Codiak here, one half of the team behind Legacy Gaming, and today we reveal if Ubisoft's grand Viking adventure Assassin's Creed Valhalla is worth your time. No matter how you break it down, Ubisoft lucked out, and I mean hard. With Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War and Cyberpunk 2077 slated for November launches, the tables were stacked against Valhalla, but a major delay to CD Projekt Red's massive open-world game and a general hunger for a Viking-themed game seems to have dealt Ubisoft a major win. In fact, Assassin's Creed Valhalla outsold Call of Duty in several parts of the world and has solidified its spot as the biggest launch ever for the franchise. But sales alone don't make great games. Great games make great games. So how does Assassin's Creed rise to the occasion? Let's find out. There's no doubt that one of the biggest draws to Assassin's Creed Valhalla is its setting. A Viking-themed game has always been part of the ongoing discussion for the series, and honestly, I think they did a decent job bringing that experience to life, albeit a bit of a whitewashed version of their checkered history. From the moment you fire up the game, the cold reaches of Norway present a striking contrast from anything we've experienced in previous Assassin's Creed games. And once you make your way over to England, the experience settles into a comfortable groove. One of the biggest features of the game is Ravensthorpe, your Viking settlement, which acts as a main hub and central resting spot throughout the entire game. I found it to be a pleasant place to return and lie low, but never felt that it rose to the lofty standards the developers were setting ahead of launch. I think the main reason for this is the lack of control you have over most aspects of the camp. Sure, you can upgrade things, interact with people, and the village does feel lived in, but because you have no control over much of the aesthetics or layout, I never felt like it was truly mine. It's a perfectly fine feature and does accomplish its goals, so I want to make that clear, but it's far from the amazing feature many were hoping it would be. What does work well in Ravensthorpe is that it's a catalyst for the main story quest, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Ever since Origins, the team behind the narrative and lore of the game have done a decent job blending fiction and history to create something truly unique. I was immediately invested in my main character, Eivor, which is easily the most important aspect of any RPG, but I was also interested in the cast of characters directly around me. Each brought a unique personality, solid voice acting, and quality storytelling to the table, and while not everything was a home run, most of the story beats made sense and were interesting and kept me wanting more. The general concept of going to different regions in England, pledging loyalty, and working to pacify an area was overall really smooth, and there was enough variety in the world, quest design, and dialogue that I never felt like I was wasting my time. After dozens of hours playing the game, I'm still perfectly okay traveling to a new region, meeting new characters, and working through a new set of dilemmas to further the Raven clan standing in our new home. Now unfortunately, as I alluded to before, not everything is a home run, and there are plenty of forgettable secondary characters that I just didn't care about. I would say the split was about 50-50. There were a number of interesting and multi-layered characters like Ivar, a bloodthirsty Viking who takes a young would-be prince under his wing, and Bassam, a hidden one that makes you wonder his true intentions at every turn. But for every great character, there are some lesser lords or priestly figures that just don't do anything to make me care about their story. Luckily, this doesn't really get in the way of the actual Viking experience, and that's where I truly believe this game takes off. When it comes to wielding an axe and sailing down the canals of England, Ubisoft knocked it out of the park. While there are plenty of bugs that get in the way of us having a truly immersive experience, more often than not, I had an absolute blast being an all-out Viking. Combat feels beefier than ever before, and once I got the hang of the dual-wield system and recognized how much freedom I had to choose, I really enjoyed the flexibility it allowed. Couple that with the fact that skills allow me to wield massive two-handed weapons as one-handers, and you're looking at one of the most interesting combat systems in an Assassin's Creed game to date. The combat itself, well, that works just fine, and while there is a weightiness to it that some people may find clunky, I think it fits perfectly well with the Viking theme. The variety of enemies is also interesting, and landing a killing blow is so satisfying thanks to the beautiful and sometimes overzealous animations. The game also doubles down on their boss fights, and there's a fair range of challenging encounters that act as the pinnacle combat challenge. The introduction of a weak point system coupled with the game's parry system means players always have a way to take down challenging enemies, and that flexibility is really fantastic. Stealth is less of a focal point in this game, and I think that's okay. And while the team did try to make you believe it was important with things like distrust areas, it almost gets in the way more than it aids the experience. There are some really cool aspects of stealth, like the twist on dual assassinations and the ability to take down elite targets via a talent, but ultimately it's riding shotgun to the brash and in-your-face combat that's clearly driving the game forward. The pivot to a Path of Exile style skill tree also works out quite well, and while it doesn't manage to even come close to giving players that level of flexibility, it's a step in the right direction. Minor nodes help keep you in line with relevant content, and the major nodes enhance your combat and stealth capabilities. There are some things I'm not wild about, like the relationship between free respecking and a skill tree obscured by a fog of war, and the general ability to allocate 400 points by the end of your experience, but it's a step in a much more interesting direction. I really hope the team isn't discouraged by the people that don't like this system, because I think it could work even better with another pass through development. The 3 unique trees push players towards a particular playstyle, but as always, Ubisoft plays it safe and never really finds a way to make this system stand out. What you're left with is a massive bucket to allocate points, and by the end of your adventures, you win. You get it all, and it feels like it takes away from what they were trying to accomplish. Another big sticking point across the game's community is the gear system, and I'll say flat out, I'm all for it. I think random loot is pretty ridiculous, and a more tailored approach gives items an identity in the world. They're not all going to be standouts, but that's not the point. The point is to make these things feel like they are valuable. If you just end up chasing random items with random stats, what's the motivation? You're just gambling for the best loot, no matter what form that takes. I understand people's frustration, sticking with a single item for the entirety of the game, but the upgrade system gives players the power to play the way they want, and I applaud that. Much like the skill system, my only real gripe is that the items and set bonuses don't do enough, and again, Ubisoft takes the safe route as to not ruffle too many feathers. If you're going to go out of your way to make these iconic custom sets of gear and weapons, make them memorable. Adding a slightly higher chance to dodge or increase damage after multiple attacks just isn't going to stand out, and that's where this system runs into issues. Like the change to the skill tree, I believe the item system is on the right track, and if randomized loot never appeared in another Assassin's Creed game, I'd be okay with it. There's a lot of good here, and it could be made even better with some more changes, so hopefully the developers continue to put in the work to refine this system. When it comes to the open world aspect of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the game doesn't disappoint. There is so much to do and see from the onset that it's actually overwhelming. Each region of England and Norway has various wealth, mystery, and artifact opportunities, and each manifests itself in a different way. But the biggest standout here is the change to side quests. Gone are the days of killing 10 boars, and finally, Ubisoft finds a way to make these moments away from the main story enjoyable. There is a perfect balance of humor, complexity, and accessibility with each of these quests, and somebody finally got the memo that players don't want to travel across the world just to pick up some random item, only to have to lug it back to a quest giver for some XP. Raids also inject a new combat-centric quest into the mix, and while it is incredibly repetitive, it's a feature I think the team could expand upon in the future. Being able to bring your warriors into battle, loot, and pillage is a ton of fun, and while it's a more sanitized version of Viking history, it's hard not to feel a little bit of adrenaline rush through you as you smash through monasteries and plunder massive treasure hoards. There's also plenty of crawling around looking for loot, and sometimes that can be a bit frustrating, but ultimately, the optional content has taken a big step in the right direction. The more mundane tasks like locating underground passageways and finding solutions to get inside barred doors has been a bit of a meme on the internet, but honestly, anyone over the age of 16 should be able to shrug it off and just move on. If we were to take a look at the optional content from a 30,000-foot view, I would say there's plenty of bloat. You could waste hours searching for chests, picking up Roman artifacts, and the payoffs aren't always great, but unless you're looking to 100% the game, those things are just that. They're optional. While not directly related, the changes to Sunan, your bird companion, and the way you scout out the world are amongst the most disappointing changes and provide no real benefit to the player. While I agree that not being able to tag every target from the sky was the right decision, stripping away that one feature seems to have left the system pretty devoid of purpose. I think making Odinsight the central intelligence gathering method for combat was a good change, but trying to find various waypoints from the sky becomes a moot point when you could just as easily open your map. I think in the next iteration of the game, this could be a big focus for redevelopment, and maybe it's time to retire the bird or just come up with something completely different to breathe some life back into the system. Now, I should mention that the combat and exploration both have different difficulty levels, and the team has done a nice job of giving players flexibility right from the option menu, but there's still a lot of work to be done on this system, and I think with some redevelopment, the team could introduce something completely different in the next game. At the end of the day, Assassin's Creed Valhalla delivers on the Viking experience that so many of us have wanted, and while there are plenty of drop balls that we could focus on, the overall game is to be commended. Are there bugs, scaling issues, some clunkiness with the free running? Yes, yes, and yes. There are also some things that just make you scratch your head, like the absence of one-handed swords and items showing up on your map that are locked behind main story quests. But those things are small bumps in the road for a game that's bigger and better than ever before. So with all that being said, we've arrived at the question we posed at the beginning of this video. Is Assassin's Creed Valhalla worth your time? And the answer is yes. The game isn't perfect, so don't walk away from this video thinking that it's Game of the Year, because it's not. The Ubisoft team does so much right, but ultimately, they fall victim to the massive scale and scope of the game. There is so much to do, see, and explore that it's impossible to get it all right. It makes me wonder how much better these games could be if they pulled back on the scale just a bit so they could focus on polishing all the rough edges. There is little that's bad about the game, but there's plenty of things that are just alright, and with a little TLC, I wonder how much better this game could be. If you're interested in playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the good news is this. The team has already committed to a multi-year DLC plan, and that means new content, new updates, and a longer lifespan. Ubisoft games also go on sale pretty often, which means the sticker price for Assassin's Creed Valhalla will most likely come down sometime in early 2021. If you're on the fence about picking up the game, just wait it out, purchase it around $35, and enjoy a well-done Viking experience. Don't expect it to be a perfect journey, but if you take the game at face value and realize there is nothing else quite like this game, well then I think you're going to have a fantastic time. We hope this video helped you figure out if Assassin's Creed Valhalla is worth your time. If you enjoyed this series and want more worth your time videos in your feed, go ahead and hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing to Legacy Gaming. You can also check us out on Discord. Our community of around 6,000 members is spread across dozens of great games, so click that link below and join today. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.